Well, welcome to my show of shows, and thanks for stopping by. What is my show of shows? It's snippets about my life. After all, I am nearly 6 decades old now, and there's a lot I'd like to talk about. Some are simple things, mundane things, but others may reflect on how things of world importance affected my family and me, and may be interesting. I hope that you'll find them all interesting. I'm going to begin with a little background. I was born at St. Luke's Hospital in Saginaw, Michigan on April 2nd, 1955. Thanks for holding off, Mom. I'm not an April Fool, despite what people say. Dr. Shaheen delivered me, and my mom said Your Hit Parade was on TV when I was born. That was a program featuring popular music of the day. When I was born, TV was in its infancy, really, picking up steam, and the golden age of radio was drawing to an unfortunate demise, though it would still chug along for a bit. The house my family lived in was at 4233 Shreve Drive in Bridgeport, Michigan, just about 10 miles south of the city of Saginaw, which was not known as Sagnasty then because it was a beautiful town at that time. Shreve Drive was a dead-end, private drive. The house I grew up in was large, 4-bedroom, and it was built by my dad, Frank James Morrison, and my grandfather, William James Morrison. After being discharged at the culmination of World War II, Dad wanted to have a peaceful place to live. When they first built the house, Shreve Drive was just that, but it changed a lot in the years my family lived there, which was from about 1947 until 1971, which is when my dad retired and he, my mom, and I moved north to Oscoda, Michigan. 24 years, which saw our family grow and eventually grow apart. My mom's name was Lorraine Florence Cunningham. Originally, her middle name was Alethea, but it was changed probably because it was really unusual, and I know my mom didn't like it. I was the youngest. The oldest is my brother Frank James Morrison Jr., with whom I was very close growing up, but now, well, sadly, we don't even talk. Money and an inflated idea of self-worth went to his head. Next was my sister Roseanne. The spelling of her name is most unusual. It is spelled Rosczan. While Dad never admitted it, Mom always believed it was the name of an Italian woman that Dad got chummy with when he was on the front lines in Italy. Then next was Bill, or William James Morrison, named after our grandfather, and there was a child born before Frank, a girl whose name was Carolyn Kay. She was full term but born dead. I don't think Mom ever got over that. She said the baby was beautiful with a full head of hair, and one day I'll get to meet my older sister when I get to heaven. For a few years, Mom's grandfather, George Cunningham, lived with the family. I was too young to remember him, but was told he was a very kind and generous man. My family loved music, though none of us played any instruments. Well, Frank did play the accordion for a brief while, but mercifully gave that up. But because of the love for music, I was exposed to a lot of different kinds, and thus I have an appreciation for many different forms of music. From my dad and mom, I learned to love some of the big band greats like Glenn Miller and Tommy Dorsey, and my oldest brother Frank gave me exposure to the opening days of rock and roll. I remember his blue and white RCA Hi-Fi and him spinning Elvis on the Sun label, as well as all the popular early rock artists. Next, Roseanne and Bill exposed me to the many varied and wonderful artists that made the 1960s a truly pivotal decade in music. I loved the Supremes, the Beatles, Janis Joplin, and many of the artists of what is known as the British Invasion era. Then it was my turn, and the music of the 70s and early 80s was my era, with the most outstanding artists for me being Elton John, the Eagles, Chicago, and many more. My very earliest memories have to do with music. I recall, in a misty sort of way, sitting in my high chair in the kitchen as my mom baked and had the radio playing. Her favorites then were, as I recall, Tommy Edwards and It's All in the Game, a song which I still love, and Primrose Lane, and I can't remember who sang that one though, but it was a really pretty song and popular at that time. I was probably about 4 years old. Another memory, a moment memory, is sitting between Dad and Mom in the front seat of their car, driving down Williamson Road as Sterling Husky was on the radio singing The Wings of a Dove. There will be a lot about music as we go along. I remember Ruby and the Romantics singing Our Day Will Come, as well as many of the other classics of the early 50s and 1960s. Being the youngest, I got to hear the best of the best as my siblings grew up and then as I came into my own. At that time, there were only 3 TV stations available to us, as cable was many years off. We got WNEM from Saginaw, which was then an NBC affiliate, but now CBS, WJRT from Flint, and a local UFO station whose call letters I can't remember anymore. The studio for WNEM, I was told, was a dirt floor back in those early days. At WNEM was one of the on-air personalities that was a favorite for many years on NBC and that or on WNEM, and that was Chuck Waters, who did the weather and a kids show called Captain Muddy. As Captain Muddy, Chuck Waters hosted a segment with kids and in the peanut gallery, and this was in between cartoons that the show featured. Once Dad and Mom took Roseanne, Bill, and I to the studio, and we got to be in the peanut gallery for one episode. I recall only vague memories of this. I think I may have been 5 years old at the time. And as I look back now, the world was so much more simple in many ways. 3 TV stations, a handful of AM radio stations, and the Saginaw News was our way of keeping up with current world events, unlike today where there is an almost instant access to news as it happens. Yeah, in 59 years I've seen a lot of change and saw the effect it had on my family and our little neighborhood. I was there for the birth of rock, for near all-out war with the Soviet Union over Cuba. I saw the invasion of the Beatles and the first men walk on the moon. I saw the assassination of a president and a major force in the civil rights movement. Next time, I'll tell you about some of these. I hope you'll join me again then. Please feel free to leave some of your own recollections in the comments below. And thanks for spending part of your day with me here on my Show of Shows.